If you ask me about the best day of my life, I won't name my wedding date, the birth of my daughter, or the day my company went public, turning me into a multimillionaire. No, the best day of my life was last Tuesday. A gray, rainy November Tuesday, when the bailiffs, politely but firmly, asked me to vacate the mansion, and my wife, without removing her sunglasses, handed me divorce papers through her lawyer. At that moment, I stood on the porch of a house worth $4 million, with a single gym bag in my hands. Inside was a change of underwear, a toothbrush, and an old laptop. Behind my back, the lock clicked. The heavy oak doors, which I had spent 6 months selecting in Italy, closed forever. My ex-wife's car drove past. She didn't even turn her head. My phone was silent. Friends and partners vanished the moment they learned my accounts were frozen and my reputation destroyed. And right then, standing in the freezing rain, absolutely destitute, disgraced and alone, I suddenly took a breath. It was the first real breath I had taken in 30 years. I started laughing. It wasn't the hysterical laughter of a madman, but the deep, booming laughter of liberation. I suddenly realized a monstrous thing. Until this moment, I had been dead. I was a walking corpse in a Brioni suit, embalmed in obligations, fears, and hypocrisy. All these years, I hadn't been living. I had been servicing my life. I was the security guard of my own warehouse of junk. And only now, when the keys to my prison, which I had mistakenly called success, were taken away, did I finally smell the wet asphalt. I felt the cold. I felt that I existed. Social death became my physical birth. The catastrophe didn't kill me. It resuscitated me. To understand how I voluntarily walled myself up in a golden cage, you have to go back 35 years. I am 15. A typical shabby apartment with peeling paint, the smell of fried onions, and hopelessness. I am sitting in the kitchen looking at my father. My father, an intelligent engineer, a man who knew poetry by heart, is on his knees, literally. In front of him is a kiosk owner, too, whom my father owes a sum that seems laughable by today's standards. My father is crying and begging for an extension. This merchant, with a gold signet ring on his finger, pats my father on the cheek and says words that make everything freeze inside me. In that second, something broke inside me, and simultaneously, it hardened. I looked at the
humiliation of the person I loved most, and felt not pity, but a burning, cold hatred for helplessness. I swore to myself, never. Never again would I depend on anyone's mercy. Never again would anyone dare look down on me. I decided that poverty is a disease, and feelings are a vulnerability. I derived a formula that became my curse.
control. Money ceased to be a means of exchange or pleasure for me. It became bricks. I began to build a wall. Every dollar earned was another layer of masonry between me and the chaos of the world. I stopped being a teenager that evening. I became a fortress builder. I forbade myself to dream because dreams do not protect against blows. I forbade myself to trust because trust is a hole in the armor. I decided to become invulnerable, not realizing then that invulnerability is a quality of stone, not a living human being. I began killing everything alive inside me just to survive. For 3 decades, I lived like a perfectly tuned mechanism. I became the architect of my fate, but there was no room for life in this project. I didn't choose a profession out of love. I chose the one with the highest margins and lowest risks. I didn't choose friends based on spirit. I curated an entourage of useful contacts. Even my marriage was part of the business plan. She was the perfect candidate, beautiful, from a good family, with impeccable manners. She She suited my image like cufflinks suit a tie. Did I love her? I told myself love was a stable partnership without scandals. Any problem could be fixed by a deal. Sad, buy a car. Lonely, host a banquet. Afraid, hire security and lawyers. I treated emotions as noise and suppressed them, interfered with efficiency. If I wanted to paint, and in my youth I drew quite well, I silenced that desire by buying a painting by a famous artist. I substituted being with having. My life turned into a glossy picture where there were no accidents. I controlled everything: the calories on my plate, the stock price, the children's schedule, the smile on my face. I was sure that happiness was the absence of problems. And I succeeded. I had no problems. I had everything. Yet every morning, waking up in my huge bedroom, I felt the weight of a concrete slab on my chest. I thought it was the stress of responsibility. Now I know. It was the weight of my armor. I built the perfect fortress, but forgot to make windows and doors. I was in complete safety, and I was suffocating. In pursuit of this invulnerability, I lost the ability to taste food, see the beauty of a sunset, and feel the warmth of a human hand. I turned into a function. To the world, I became a human ATM. I remember one dinner. The whole family is gathered, an expensive restaurant, exquisite dishes. I look at my wife and children, and suddenly I realize with horror, I don't know them, and they don't know me. They know my credit card, my status, my capabilities. I trained them to be this way. I bought my way out of their problems instead of solving them together. I gave gifts instead of time. I turned my family into staff serving. I was when I didn't need to command anyone. I became an empty shell, a decoration. My safety cost me my soul. I protected myself from pain, but at the same time, I protected myself from joy. I became sterile. I looked in the mirror and saw a successful, well-groomed man with dead eyes. I achieved everything that humiliated boy from the poor apartment dreamed of. But that boy died somewhere along the way, buried under piles of gold and obligations. I was the richest corpse in this cemetery of vanity. And then, when I turned 50, the house of cards collapsed. The crisis, the betrayal of partners, management errors, everything converged at a single point. At first I panicked. I fought like a beast, trying to hold on to the wreckage of my empire. I didn't sleep. I humiliated myself. I begged. But it was all in vain. When the dust settled, and I found myself on that porch with the bag, clarity came. I thought losing everything was the end, but it turned out to be the beginning. I hit rock bottom, and you know what? The bottom turned out to be solid. It is the only surface from which you can truly push off. While you are floundering in the water, trying to maintain the appearance of success, you are wasting your strength. But when you stand on the bottom, you have nowhere left to fall. The fear disappeared. The very fear that drove me forward for 35 years, fear of poverty, fear of judgment, fear of loss evaporated. The worst had already happened, and I survived. I looked at my hands, the same. My mind was intact. My experience stayed with me, but the shell had fallen away. No millions, no entourage, no titles. Left alone with myself, I finally asked, "So who are you, pal, without all that? Your armor?" And for the first time in half a century, I heard a quiet but honest answer. I am not my bank account. I am not my car. I am the one who can survive when all this is taken away. I felt a wild, intoxicating freedom. The freedom to be imperfect, to be weak, to be real. My prison is destroyed. I am bankrupt, but for the first time, I am rich in myself. You are afraid of losing what you have. You tremble over your status, over things, over the opinions of others. You build walls. But listen to a man who lost everything. The fear of falling is an illusion. It exhausts you more than the impact with the ground. The scariest thing in life is not to fall. The scariest thing is to spend your whole life on your knees, praying for safety, and never knowing what it is like to stand at full height when you have nothing left to lose. Do not be afraid of the fire. Only the superfluous burns. The real is incombustible.